Any series as long-running as Zelda is bound to have a few titles that slip through some cracked dungeon flooring. And normally I'd say the bad guys should get those holes fixed, but that'd make our journey easier. And that's just unacceptable. But yeah, the video title very clearly says Link's Awakening, so I doubt you were expecting Ocarina to be the seldom appreciated title at hand. However, Ocarina is surprisingly integral to what I want to discuss. See, in doing a little digging for my second ever Awakening, I stumbled upon some interesting quotes from a few of our favorite folks over at Nintendo. Between Shiggy, Aonuma, and Tezuka, they all essentially share the thought that Awakening is a massively important game in the series, and that Ocarina would have been vastly different had they not made it beforehand. Now it's like, duh, of course Ocarina would have been different. If they hadn't had new experiences coming up with a different game prior to it, then who knows what we would have gotten, right? Well, yeah, but at the same time, I've been sitting here racking my brain for any similarities and inspirations since reading those thoughts. Having only played Awakening once prior to writing all of this, I honestly couldn't come up with much. So I decided simply going through the game again would be for the best. And I've honestly been really curious because Ocarina is without a doubt my favorite game of all time. Figuring out a little bit more about how it ticks sounds fascinating to me. So, here's a few key ideas that Link's Awakening started and how they carried into Ocarina and beyond. Let's do this. The first example I'm going to point out is our good friend, the ever-lovable Mr. Owl. Cause this one isn't Gaypora Gaybora. If he was, he'd be a bit more annoying. Much like in Ocarina though, his purpose is to reveal himself at specific moments as a way of guiding the player along. And in a game like Awakening, which at times either chooses to direct you less or lacks any clear direction for that matter, he's a welcome sight as it's a clear indicator that you're making progress. And he never overstays his welcome. He flutters in, hoots at you a couple times like, hey, you're getting close, here's another hint, and flies off to presumably watch over you until you're ready to move on. In which case, that's kinda creepy, dude. Oi, Owl! I don't need you watching over me, you bastard. Don't you have rodents to eat or something? Man, what? I don't know what talking owls do. Whatever. Now, this was the first Zelda game to incorporate something like this. Granted, this is still early days for the series, but none of the previous games had a sort of guardian or companion character to help make sure you're actually progressing. Instead, you either weren't told a thing, or were literally shown on the map the places you needed to get to, which, I don't know, I feel like that kinda defeats the entire purpose of exploring. In this way, I actually quite like the Owl in Awakening because it becomes a decent motivator. Again, the game is still fairly hands-off with its approach, giving players ample time to figure things out for themselves. So, when you spend a while figuring out what to do and where to go, to have him show up brings a sigh of relief. And it's interesting to see that from the Owl we continue to get more present companions helping us along with each subsequent release. Huh. You know, maybe they got that balance right from the start. Alright, so, okay, the Owl's a fairly obvious similarity. But what about a good old trading sequence? Yup. Turns out that another staple of the series made its first appearance in Link's Awakening. If you don't know what that is, it's honestly fairly simple. Certain characters you meet along your journey will hint at something they want through conversation with them. If you happen to find something suitable along your travels, you can give it to them in exchange for something else. That's a whole lot of somethings in there. But yeah, this item can then be traded with someone else. And by the time you get to the end of the sequence, you'll have earned a nice reward for your efforts. Overall, I'm pretty happy with its inclusion. By befriending a wide range of characters, it helps to better make the worlds you explore feel alive. Even in a game as dated as Link's Awakening, these interactions bring an added vibrancy that has inhabited every Zelda game since. Because it's not like you're giving something to stock character number 3 over here. Each person you encounter through this quest is unique. Except... wait a second. Oh, Ian, I see you have a nice stick. Can I borrow it for a second? Hey, Tarin, buddy. A, when I said unique, I didn't mean be a fucking pervert. And B, no. This island is full of weirdos, man. Anyway, you always get something good by the time you've traded away that last item, so there's nothing but benefits if you complete these quest lines. What's interesting though is that the trading sequence's first foray for the series is actually mandatory. If you want to be able to read the Book of Dark Secrets in the library of Mabe Village, you're gonna need the magnifying glass, which can only be obtained by getting a mermaid scale via this quest. And trust me, you want to read that book, as it provides the path forward through the random maze inside the windfish's egg. And by maze, I mean it's identical rooms with 4 ways in and out, and the way through is not only 8 layers deep, but is completely randomized in every playthrough. Yeah, Good luck getting through that shit without reading the book. Now, the nature of the trading sequence is fairly well paced in Link's Awakening, so it's not as if anything is going to be too out of your way. As you go along in the earlier parts of the game, the next step in the trade is close at hand. And by the time you might need to go further out, you gain ways to move about more easily. However, there isn't a clear indicator that you should be going through the process, so I could understand if players got to the end of the game having not completed the quest. As such, I think making the trading sequence an optional quest in subsequent releases is smart, as it doesn't inhibit some players from simply completing the game, but rewards those who put that extra effort in. And speaking of extra effort, I'd be remiss if I didn't elaborate on moving about more easily. Sorry, I kinda glossed over that. Okay, so check this out. In Ocarina, you've got these strange warps that you use as a kid to get around Hyrule more easily. Now, at first, not all of them are available for one reason or another. Because, you know, maybe there's some insurmountable boulders or something. Which, okay, hold on, can I just say this? Like, really? Gorons? You guys bitch about not having food, but it looks like you have a feast packed in right there. Get your shit together, Darunia. But hey, once you've opened up every warp, you'll be able to quickly move from Death Mountain to the Lost Woods to just outside Zora's Domain and then through to Lake Hylia, all in a matter of minutes. Before you've learned the warp songs as an adult, these are invaluable in moving about quickly, especially if you're simply trying to round up some goodies before you remove the Master Sword. Yet this was another idea that was explored first in Link's Awakening. I mean, sure, you could warp in the light world of A Link to the Past by playing the Ocarina and having a little bird whisk you away. By the way, I'll get back to the Ocarina in just a little bit here, so don't you worry. But Link's Awakening introduces the warps in such a way that the world becomes more connected as you progress. With just one Ocarina warp song moving you to a set location this time around, these warps are then repeatedly useful. And I think it's actually applied better compared to Ocarina specifically because these warps are never outdated by other songs. And finding one last warp that provides you easy access to the halfway mark of the game's tough-to-reach final dungeon was such a pleasant surprise. The devs knew that climbing through the heights of the Tall Mountains was quite a treacherous trek. Being able to then return quickly as a result for completing part of the dungeon is a great way of re-emphasizing the warp's lasting importance. Beyond this, though, perhaps the most lasting addition to the series is making the Ocarina more prevalent. Told you I was gonna get to it soon. Again, in A Link to the Past, it gives you the ability to warp to 8 locations around the map while in the Light World, which ultimately proves necessary in reaching Misery Mire, one of the game's dungeons. Link's Awakening instead places a lot more emphasis on the Ocarina, not only providing you with 3 whole songs to learn on your travels, holy shit, right? But making them repeatedly important along the way. Now, I already mentioned that there's a song that allows you to warp, but its location is set, much like the warp songs in Ocarina. Alongside that, you're given 2 more songs that are pivotal in unlocking key story moments. The Frog's Song of Soul, whose powerful melody can reawaken the sleeping or even revive the dead, and the Ballad of the Windfish, the game's most vital song. The influence on Ocarina is pretty staggering, as the power of the Ocarina and the songs you learn is on full display, opening even more routes forward in pivotal story moments and displaying greater utility outside of them. And from Ocarina onwards, your instrument and the songs you learn for it have continued to play a massive role. Just look at the Wind Waker. The title of the game is literally the game's instrument. And the game that really kicked this focus off in earnest was Link's Awakening. And that's not even all the similarities I found. You might be surprised to know that the Lens of Truth as an idea was first introduced in Link's Awakening. Remember that magnifying glass I mentioned? Yeah, that's it. Except that's not quite as cool of a name. Oh, and you know Malon and Talon in Ocarina? It's never been stated definitively, but the names Marin and Tarin, and those appearances? Yeah, I think it's fair to say they took aspects of these characters into Ocarina. And overall, Awakening is an absolutely solid title, and one that doesn't get enough credit for what it brought to the series. Some of the fanbase's favorite aspects of the franchise were started in this game. Like, come on, this game did bomb arrows way before Twilight Princess, and that's rad as hell. Yet because it sits between 2 giants of the industry, it's been a bit neglected, and that's a shame. At this point though, this game will hold an indelible place in my heart. For the longest time, I've loved and cherished Ocarina without really considering where it came from and what ultimately helped to make it an enduring classic. And now that I've examined Awakening a bit more closely, I'll forever appreciate how it shaped and inspired my favorite game of all time. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, definitely leave me a like. I mean, that only takes a couple seconds and can really help me out. And if you want to see more content ranging from Zelda to whatever, I mean, hey, why not hit the subscribe button? That would be amazing.